Hey, Abraham, did they finish setting up the lights? 180? That's funny. A light tech sees those wires and he's like, I gotta move those things. To me, I'm like, nah. But a musician hears stuff is like, we gotta change that. Well, right where your right hand is. Praise God. Um, Ezekiel, do you know how to get the scriptures up here? Somebody knows the computer? I can look over here in the meantime till somebody can figure that out. There's a way. You can call Ben and ask him. Okay. Appreciate you coming. We're going to open in prayer. Who's got the mic? Open in prayer.
Father God, I ask that you would help us this morning, God, in this Sunday school, help us to learn and receive the word. Holy Spirit, minister the people in Jesus.
So we're finishing up our study on the elephant in the room and how to have a hard conversation as a Christian and what the Bible says about that. So last week we talked about ministry conversations and whether you're leading a ministry, in ministry, see somebody in ministry, whether you're in ministry or not. Sometimes you can have a conversation about ministry. It's interesting. On Wednesday, we're driving home, and Jen said something that's not going to affect anybody here, but she said people are watching online all over the world, and maybe you could do it like this. I said, yeah, probably true. So uh, it's hard for us sometimes to have ministry conversation. Even somebody who's not in ministry can notice something and try to help you. If they say it in the right way, if they come and like, man, that sounded horrible, that's not going to work. But if you come and say, hey, I noticed like that song, I after the skit, apparently somebody had bumped my guitar in the skit. I don't know what happened, but I got up and I'm playing the chord. It doesn't sound right, and it was out of tune. And it's a good thing I tuned it before we played. It would have sounded horrible. So sometimes in ministry, people get out of tune, and it could have just been a bump, against the wall, and the guitar peg, turned, and we got it back in tune. It sounded good. So sometimes in life, we have to have those ministry conversations. Okay. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Scriptures and comments. Go ahead.
It was right before over, and they're like here arguing better and greatest. Also, when people are up on the platform as a fellowship, we shouldn't like, oh wait, so and so's better. Why is that person up there? We should have a picture of what God is really doing here,
Yes.
and no matter how little you think you're impacting, you're an impact to other people who are viewing. So if they see us bickering about who's better, this and that, who's going to want to be part of that? Because the world does
Right.
that all the time.
True. Yeah. Now, never happens in Palmdale, but sometimes there's disputes uh, about who's the better guitar player, who's going to play the solo, who's going to sing, uh, whatever it is, who's going to preach, who's going to lead the outreach. It can even be cleaning. We had a lady in our home church, and we were trying to help clean. She's like, "That's my ministry. You can't do that." Okay. And she wasn't even getting paid. She just wanted to be a blessing to the church. So there are going to be conversations, and how we have those conversations, people notice, especially visitors. Somebody else, scriptures, questions, comments, elephant in the room. Sure, everybody wrote down what they were thinking about last week. Check your notes. This is a hard conversation. There's an elephant. All right, Andre.
You were talking about timing, like the time to bring the elephants in the room. So you were saying that you have to know the person, and if you know them well, you know what will be a good time and what will be a bad time.
Yes.
And sometimes you just have to pause and stop and be like, "Oh, right now it's not the correct time."
Yes. Very good. We have a very bad habit where we're thinking about a problem, and sometimes we assume that the other person is thinking about the same problem, and as soon as they walk in, we start in. Somebody just got off work and they walk in the door and they're tired and hungry and dirty, and probably not the best time. Even though you've been thinking about it, you need to give somebody a chance to decompress. You're going to have a good conversation. Matthew.
Then said, "For do I now pursue men seek to please men? So say that's how we
Very good. Laura.
Facial expression that
What?
the face says it all. I know that I have a really bad habit that my face will tell everybody what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I have a difficult time hiding what I feel. Um, Dan's good. She picks it up. What's going on? So one of the things that God can help us with is if we have peace about a situation, then it's not as likely to show, even though nothing has changed. We've prayed, we've given it to God, and we go into a conversation. Uh, we don't have to be showing that we're upset. That's not easy.
like he or something. And I've learned to not take it personal, because when somebody tells you you're not doing something right, song service or whatever thing it may be, they're not telling you to get down on you, they're telling you to benefit you, to make you better.
Right.
And I've just learned to take constructive criticism, and I pray God help me to have a teachable spirit that when people correct me or direct me, I don't take it the wrong way, but rather I do what they tell me so I can continue to.
Yeah. The book, Pastor Greg's book on rejection, very, very helpful. If you haven't read it, you should. When somebody is correcting you, uh, it's hard. All of us, it's hard. to receive correction. But the Bible says God is a loving Father, and because He loves us, He corrects us. And so if we are open to God correcting us, then God can speak to us through somebody who's truly trying to help. And even sometimes people that are really giving you a hard time, you can still say, okay, maybe they didn't say it right, and maybe their motives aren't pure, but in reality, I really do need to fix this. And take, you know, throw out all of the extra part that, is wrong, but say that what they said is still true. Okay?
Going off on what Laura said, I also sometimes people will say something, I want to react right away, and then Jack will ask me something, and I'll say no. And afterwards, I'll repent, and I'll think, okay, I'll do that. But then I started praying, God, you've got to change this in me. And then through the years, when I've taken things to God, God does change me. So because it's something I feel like I can't change.
Can help us change. Okay, we're going to finish this up, and this will be the last study on elephants in the room, and we'll start a new one next week. So we'll talk about navigating ministry reality. We only have a couple of verses. If you'd like to read Galatians 1:10, Laura, Carmen. Actually, Laura, I'm going to have you read that twice. Carmen, you can get Galatians 1, verse 11 and 12. That will be it for this one. We've got a lot to discuss in closing. So, one of the things that we've talked about in each of these situations, if we have difficulty in hard conversations, especially in ministry, then we need to first let God show us what's going on inside of us. Sometimes what's happening in our heart makes that conversation more difficult than it needs to be. When we're having a hard time about something, it's difficult to communicate properly because we got other things going on in our head or in our heart that's kind of steering the conversation and amping it up. Okay? If you've just exercised and you're trying to have a conversation, say, you've been running, and somebody asks you a question, you go, okay, all right, I'll tell you in a minute because I'm tired. Now, if they know you've been running, that makes sense. But if they didn't know that, you answer the phone, you're going to be like, what's going on? Right? So we're not maybe physically running somewhere, but we are thinking about problems. When you think about problems, what happens? You get your heart going. Right? The devil's a master at putting stuff in our head and making it so real, it's like we're actually going through it. And so in our mind, we're breathing hard. Why? We're not doing anything. But we're thinking about the situation. And the fight or flight, the adrenaline's kicking in. Our body is actually producing chemicals to get our heart going, our breathing rate going, and then somebody says something, we're already worked up, man. We're already driving 70 miles an hour in our mind, and they're like, at 5 miles an hour, and you're like, whoa. So sometimes, Jen and I have done this. I'll say something, she'll react, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was thinking about this, and, that made what I said come out wrong. So it's not you, it's me. And if you let God help you, He can show you what's going on inside of you and why you're reacting so much. Galatians chapter 1, Paul speaking, verse 10.
Do you think I am trying to make people accept me? No. God is the one I am trying to please. And am I trying to please people? If I still want to please people, I would not be serving the Christ.
Okay. Yeah. So when he talks about serving Christ, it's not a word that you use every day when you go to work. Can I serve today? Right? We don't use that in everyday conversation. That word serve means to minister. Okay? When we use the word ministry, the root of it means we're going to serve in the church. And that doesn't mean you have to have a position up here. There are people that serve in prayer. I know they pray. Okay? People that serve in giving. When you look at the gifts of the Spirit, that's all a type of ministry. It's service. And he says, as a servant of Christ, I need to please God most importantly. Right? That doesn't mean we don't care what anybody thinks. And any musician in here will tell you there are people, they are trying to please God, but they have not developed their voice or musical ability. Sometimes I walk in to pray in the 180 and I'm going, God, please help them to learn how to sing. Okay? Now, they're doing it out of a right heart, but somebody needs to talk to them and say, you're off key and you need to practice. Now, those conversations are not easy, right? And the interesting thing in most of the churches, I've been the best musician. I'm not the best musician here. That's frustrating. There are people that sing better than me. And yesterday, when we started practicing the new song, I tried to sing it high. It's out of my range. I'm squeaking. And I said, you know what? I think I just need to sing this. And that's humbling. Okay. But it went okay. Right? Sometimes we got to humble ourselves. Even though we're not pleasing people and we're only pleasing God, if our heart's right and people say something to us, even though we may have made a mistake, we missed the chord, we do something wrong, we can say, okay, I appreciate what you're telling me. And the reason you can have a good attitude about it because you want to have an attitude that pleases God. Right? Danger is when we compromise against what God says to please people. People will miss church. Why? Because family said, we're having a party. Great. I'll be there after 12 o'clock on Sunday. And I've got to leave by about 5 o'clock because I need to make sure I'm in prayer. Don't you love us? I love you a lot, but not more than Jesus. And I got to be in church. So, where does people pleasing come from? This is from a previous lesson. The shadows of friends and family and past conflict. When we go through things, whether it's growing up, whatever, relationships, when somebody comes around, when my dad walked into a room, it affected the whole room. Okay? He had that presence. He was 6'4". He was, later he was much bigger, but, he was just, he would walk in and he would say something. It didn't matter if there were hundreds of people. The whole room would get quiet and look at him. And so, that's the way I was raised. And so I didn't want to speak up because he's in charge of the room. Even when he was wrong, when I got saved and he was, down and out drunk and asking me questions, I'm like, Dad, I know you don't agree with this, but my only answer for you is Jesus. But it was so difficult to have that conversation because of the shadow that he cast over everybody around him. Some people recently went swimming and got sunburned. We're not going to mention any names, but if they look a little darker than usual, that's why. Sunburns, you know, you finish being in the sun, but that sunburn is still affecting you. Okay? And so somebody comes up, what's going on? Okay. And that's the way it is when you talk to some people, okay? Especially in ministry. Some people have never learned, you know, there is medication you can put on a sunburn to take the pain away, right? And it will eventually go down. But if somebody comes and touches, take it. You know, one of the dumbest things they ever came up with is defund the police. Oh, that worked real well. No, we need police. Does that mean that every policeman is 100% right? No, they're sinners. People are sinners. Okay? You give somebody who has a heart issue, you can cover it up. You can go through an academy. I saw this working the prison and the sheriff's department. You go through the academy, you can pass the books, you can do the exercising, you can stand at attention. But if your heart's not right, I had a sergeant walked on the prison yard drunk and not trying to be crude, but literally started using the restroom in the middle of the yard. You need to be fired. Okay. So, you know, there are people like that, but that doesn't mean that every policeman is wrong. So, you know, if somebody's talking to you about ministry, whether they're above you, maybe they're with you in ministry, or it can even be somebody that's out in the crowd that notices something. If they touch your sunburn and you react, why are you reacting so much? All I did was tell you, you know, you were out of key on the guitar. And so we have to recognize where that's coming from. Unresolved issues. We have things that we're dealing with that aren't fixed, and we're thinking about it. Nobody else knows what we're thinking about. And so when somebody comes and talks to us, we're like, hey, wait a minute. Why are you trying to tell me that? I got other things I'm dealing with. Yesterday, for whatever reason, the new alarm system, the touchpad quit working. Came in and, you know, I'm trying to touch something to get it to work. I touched arm the alarm. And now I can't get it off. And it's beeping down from a minute down to 0. And as soon as we move, oh God. Literally had to call headquarters. They remotely reset the whole alarm. My ears rang for 2 hours. Okay? It was like I was at a Metallica concert with no earplugs. Man, it's like, it was an unresolved issue, and I was having to control myself all last night just because my ears were hurting so bad. Sometimes in life, you say something to somebody and they react. They've got an issue that they need to resolve. Talked about rejection. All of you should, if you have the chance, you should read Pastor Greg's book on rejection. It will help you through so many things. You deal with your own issues of rejection. Somebody else comes to talk to you. You've already dealt with that in your heart. And then when we have needs that are not being met, God will meet our needs, but he does it in his time. It's very difficult for us to wait on God because he doesn't say, oh, in 3 days and 15 hours, I'm going to meet this need. Like, God, what's going on? And the need still hasn't been met. And now somebody else adds to the problem. We're already dealing with something. So let's go to the next screen, the first part of Galatians 1, verse 10. Read that again.
you think I am trying to make people accept me, God is the one I'm trying to please.
So, in ministry, first and foremost, make sure you're doing things right with God. Then you can do things to help people. Somebody sent me a very honest question. Can I wear something in ministry? I said, we have military people coming. Okay? That's the standard that we're going to use. Okay? How does a military person look? They're a man, have a dress shirt and a tie. Right? You know, when we were in Rwanda, the government shut the church down, and we went to church. It wasn't our church. We couldn't have church. We visited. There were 3 English-speaking churches in a city of 1 million people. And the first one we went to was just, we were like in a fishbowl. Everybody was staring at us. The second one, the guy preaching was in a Hawaii shirt with sandals, flip-flops, and like shorts. And he's the preacher. Like, let's go find option 3. Okay. Now, God knows his heart, but I want to tell you, you're representing Christ. Okay. Yes, God knows our heart, and we're pleasing God. But also, when I walk into a bank, I don't want somebody that looks like a thug taking my money. Okay. How does a banker look? Dress up. Okay. There are dress standards, and so that's what we do. We're not focusing on pleasing people and not pleasing God. God is the most important person that we're pleasing. And if our heart is right, somebody can come and tell you, hey, we're going to use somebody else this morning because you didn't wear your tie. Don't take that personally. Okay? Let's talk about boundaries. All of life is filled with boundaries. When you're driving down the road, you have to stay on your side of the road. Right? How many remember the accident on the 14 going into Santa Clarita when the guy didn't see the motorcycle and almost hit him? Okay? He's drifting, and he's changing lane. The motorcycle's in the blind spot. And the motorcycle's going over, almost into the wall. Finally gets on the brake, gets behind him and waits, drives up again and kicks the door of the car. The driver had no clue what he had even done. And when he hears that, he, because he thought he hit something, goes into the other lane. A truck flipped. Wasn't even involved in anything. He's just driving by and a car's coming at him and he overreacts and flips. And this car's going like this and the motorcycle just right down the road. Why? Because somebody got outside of the boundary. Okay. Now, the motorcycle guy repainted his motorcycle so he wouldn't get caught, but he still got caught. Okay. Because your sin will find you out. Right. But it all started because drifting out of a boundary. Okay. So in ministry, there are boundaries. We have ministry standards. Thank you. All right. If you're gonna, drive all over the road, you're not gonna be a good example. Okay. So the reason we have ministry standards and a dress code is because what I do affects the whole church. Anybody in ministry, you're gonna have an effect on people. Okay. Think about your life. If they take your life and they go to an extreme, okay, that's what you have to think about. Pastor Mitchell said you can start at A and go to P, but the people watching you are going to go all the way to Z. Okay? So that's why we have standards. Sometimes we have to have ministry conversations and say, you're outside of the boundary right now. Doesn't mean you have to stay there. You can get back in. So remember, if you're having a hard conversation or somebody's having a hard conversation with you, what is the whole goal of the conversation? It's not to tell people that they're completely messed up and there's no hope in life. Okay? We've all had parents, teachers, sometimes even pastors that say things and they feel better by making you feel bad. Okay? Jesus wasn't like that. He's not like that. Okay? God doesn't have to make us feel bad for him to feel better. He's holy. He's on the throne. Nothing we do or say is going to change who he is. Right? If somebody in the past has treated you in a way to make you feel lower, trying to make themselves feel higher, don't react when somebody else tries to tell you something in ministry or to try to help you just because somebody has given you a hard time. So, let's talk about the big picture. Right? 180, we started having meetings. I don't even remember why we started that. But after the 180, we started reviewing what happened. Okay? There's no visitors. Maybe it was because of the outreach. And then you got to ask, did I personally try to get somebody to come? Every 180, we should have visitors. If we don't have a visitor or a new convert there, there's no reason to do it because it's not entertainment. I've literally, I think twice, I've stopped the 180. We're getting ready, and everybody's like, our pastor, are we ready? I'm like, no. And I get up and I said, there's no visitors here. There's no converts. Why are we doing this? We're not doing it for entertainment. We can be ready if somebody comes, we can start up, but if we're not going to have visitors and converts, there's no reason to do it. So that's the big picture. It's not, man, can I play the best lead? That's not what it's about. Okay? It's about getting people saved. When we have church, this is something I've tried to tell the guys. You need to notice what I notice. The guy that just walked in, he's very good at noticing what I notice. Okay? I can be up here on the platform. I see something, I want somebody to do it. People, they're singing songs. That's good. They're doing what they need to do. That's good. But I'm like, somebody needs to deal with this. And I look up and Clay's like, what are you trying to do? I'll just, okay, it's fixed. That's the big picture, right? Don't lock into your little area, right? If you're in ministry, think about other people, especially visitors. One of the saddest things is that if a visitor walked in and nobody spoke to them, they'll never come back. Okay? Last night, we had visitors at the 180, and they're walking out, and I made a point. Hey, did you enjoy it? Yeah. Do you guys go to church anywhere? No. Man, it would be great to have you come tomorrow. Yes, we're planning on coming. That's what a visitor needs. They need to know that somebody cares. Let's go on to the next screen. And there we go. Micromanaging. Variably micromanaging results in 4 problems: deceit, disloyalty, conflict, and communication problems. Micromanaging is when you have to make sure that everybody does exactly what you tell them, or you're going to let them know. Okay? How many of you parents have had multiple kids, and the first kid, you're thinking, this is what it's going to be like, man, we're going to, and by the 4th kid, you're like, I don't care. Because you micromanage the first one, and then you realize you don't have to micromanage. You can guide them, but generally, at some point, you just got to let kids be kids. Okay, they're going to fall down and they're going to get hurt, and you got to put a Band-Aid on it and tell them they're okay and go play again. This is also true in ministry. You can't, if you're a ministry leader, okay, don't be a micromanager and tell people every little thing that has to be done. Sometimes I ask people, I'll ask Matt, what am I thinking right now? I don't know. Look around, okay? Big picture, what's bothering me? There's something bothering me. Like, oh yeah, I'll go do it. Okay, next screen, the supernatural element. Ministry is God moving through people. Okay? God has hard talks with us, and God can move through us so that we can have hard conversations with people and do it in a way that will help them. Right? Some people you talk to and immediately shields up. You're not going to hurt me. I'm trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you. Okay? If somebody's trying to guide you, don't react like, they're attacking you. Just say, okay, see what you're saying. This is my viewpoint of it. This is why it happened. So we have to get God involved in hard conversations. Galatians 1, verse 11 and 12.
Sisters, I want to know that the good news to you is not made up by human beings. I did not get it from people, nor did anyone teach it to me, but Jesus Christ showed it to me.
So this is a powerful statement coming from the Apostle Paul. He said, this is not something made up by people. One of the lies of the devil is you're not really saved. You just went to church and, you said that prayer, but God's not real. He didn't really change your life. Listen, I tried so many times to change, I could not change until I said that prayer and I was instantly set free from drugs and alcohol. That was undeniable. I knew that was God. I knew God wanted me to change my thought processes, and God began to help me. I remember when I had hurt my hand and I didn't cuss, and I went, wow, I'm saved. Because I didn't say what I was thinking. That was God helping me to change. I remember being set free from that demon of lust that I was raised with from 5 years old, man, looking at my dad's pornography magazine, watching his movies, and just all of the insanity growing up. And I'm like, God, I don't want to think this way. And, it was summertime. This girl was dressed like a prostitute. She's walking by, and I'm like, don't look. God said, how do I look at her? God doesn't lust after women. And he said, I'm going to show you how she looks on the inside. And I just glanced back. I thought, that's hurting. One of the things we have to remember is that God can change it. That's the supernatural element. When you're going through things, get God involved. This is what I've told couples. They'll be in the office and they're wanting to argue in front of me. I said, you're not going to do that. We're gonna resolve this. Tell me this is bothering you. Okay, this is bothering you. Now we're done. We're gonna pray. Why? Because God's the only one that can heal a marriage. And if I've told couples, join hands and pray. And I'm telling you, it does something supernatural. It's beyond what he said and what she said. What does God say about that? And if God's involved in a situation, he can help fix that situation. Whatever their problem is, get God involved. So we're going to just review, and if there's any of the lessons that God has helped you with, anything that you've been able to put into practice in the hard conversations, maybe examples, and God's helped you in having a hard conversation and it's gone well. Going to open it up. Questions or comments? Next week, we're going to start a new study. Yeah. Yeah.
When I first got saved, I had a roommate, and she told me, trust issues. Maybe I do. But I remember my dad like being in church, and we would hop Catholics, but we would hop different churches for weeks. We didn't want to get close to people, and so the easiest thing for us as humans is just if there's a problem, just get out of it. I don't want conflict. I'm out of here. But God puts us in a church. He didn't make
Mhm.
us hermits. He put us in a church. So as we interact with people, as I rub people the wrong way, and God calls me on it, and I realize the things inside of me that need to be changed, and then God can help me to change. But it's a whole, it makes me think. I remember when I was a kid, I went to a camp and we tumbled rocks. You can get rocks that are real rough, but they put them in a tumbler, and as they hit against each other, they get real smooth and pretty. And that's how a church is. As we interact and tumble around with each other, God makes us into something beautiful.
That's awesome. It's a great illustration. It's, it's a rock tumbling church. Andre.
So, your study today reminded me this morning, something God was dealing with me about. So, me and Abraham earlier we were fixing the chairs, and they have to be straight and everything. So Abraham came up to me. He was like, "Hey, brother, so this is your job. Keep it straight here. That's all you have to do." I said, "Yeah, bro. Thank you. I appreciate it." Reason for me why it was a big deal is because the past, the old man, I couldn't take stuff like that. I'll just snap or react to it. But I was just kind of showing me, "Hey, he's trying to help you. Take it cool." Yeah, cool. And later on, we did it together, teamwork. I told, hey, Abraham, it's straight now. I'm gonna leave now. Like, cool. That's it. But God was just kind of reminding me, hey, you're not the old man anymore. You're the
Good.
new man.
Very good.
Obviously, that's all it was.
Yeah. So, I mentioned the military. The military guys, they learn how to get things straight. But let me bring it down even better. We were pioneering our first church. We needed to get carpet. I walked into a carpet store. Everything was in chaos. The carpet was, you know, it looked bad in the carpet store. And we turned around and walked out. Now, they may have had good carpet in the back room. They may have had good installers that could install it. But that first impression when I walked in that store, this is not a place to buy carpet. Why? Because their carpet didn't look good. So when people walk into church, they notice things. And if things are in chaos, they're like, this isn't a good church. It may be a good church with good people, but people notice first impression. And so that's a very good thing to learn.
We have to realize, are they, especially back, that sometimes very critical of something, right? If it's not right out, it's like they're being attacked. They're representing the church, and we should be passionate and in our personal lives with loved ones that are not saved. Well, we need to know how to run and remember viewers. People come and try to tell you you don't know anything.
Right.
Just never made it. Always let God teach us how to teach because
Good.
we don't know it.
Very good. Abraham?
Introducing the elephant. You had mentioned that you can't really resolve conflicts through text. You got to talk to them face to face. And I texted my older brother Diego, a conflict. Didn't go well at all. Just like listed about what I was trying to say. But then a couple months after that, or probably not months, couple weeks after that, um, I go to the valley, hanging out with him. We're like in the living room, and then everybody there knows each other, so it's not tell him, tell him. And I basically, in a short, phrase of words, since we were talking about relationships and marriage, and talking about one another and what I'm doing for God and how I'm preparing. And I just looked to my older brother and I just encouraged my brother. I'm like, relationships, they're not meant to just be that with somebody. God made marriage for a reason. God's plan for relationship is marriage. And he's laying on the bed and he's just like listening to me. Didn't say a word. So it was, sort of a little, open door and took advantage of it.
All right. And if you can get the next picture up, we're going to start a new study next week. Hallelujah. You said it was ready? All right. We're gonna do a study on the kings in the Bible. And this is not the sinner kings, because obviously sinners don't know how to be a good king. We're going to talk about the kings over God's people, and that Jesus is the King of Kings, and we are called to be kings and priests. So, biblical kings and how we can live in God's dominion. We're going to start that next week. Encourage you to come be involved in that. We're going to have church at 10:30. Appreciate you coming.